Welcome back to Voices of the Unseen. The journey starts now. Before the world carried scars, the garden breathed like a vast chest. Rivers of glass split the earth into four veins, and every blade of grass seemed to recall its name. Light did not fall. It hovered, settled, caressed. There Adam awoke, feet sunk in soil that smelled of new rain, and a fierce curiosity drumming his heart like war. He walked and named. To each creature he gave a precise sound, like someone tuning an instrument. The lion arched beneath that baptism, the deer pricked its ears, and the cicada accepted its fate as the night's tremolo. Adam laughed, and the laughter echoed on hills that did not yet know they were mountains. Yet in the blaze of so much brightness, he noticed a lack, not hunger or thirst, the shape of a silence, asking for company. Then sleep, not a fall, but a dive into a bottomless lake. And from his side, not torn, but opened like a door of light. Eve emerged, her eyes brought entire islands, and her first look was a sunrise inside the sunrise. Adam spoke her name in wonder, and the garden replied by tuning the birds, balancing perfumes, easing the distance between two solitudes. That they walked. They learned the grammar of wind, the knots of roots, the secret map of the honeycombs. There was a center, a heart of the garden where two trees raised their crowns. One nourished endless life, the other guarded a knowledge that smelled like they were not wholly alone. On the eastern border, a spiral flame kept the limit with a patience as old as the cosmos. In the day's mild hour, when the wind strolled like a friend who arrives without haste, they heard the warning that was also promise. All is yours, save the fruit of the tree. At the center, not all knowing ripens in time, said the wind. Adam and Eve agreed. Their yes was clear as water striking rock. They sowed trust as someone plants vines. But the garden, wide as a dream that never ends, had bins where shadow tested its voice. A slender outline, ancient as dust, coiled round the nearest trunk with a dancer's grace. It was not merely serpent. It was a question wearing skin. It watched, waited, measured the distance between obedience and desire, like an archer drawing the string. Eve approached out of clean curiosity, Adam out of loyalty. The air grew dense, as if each particle were waiting for a word. The tongue of doubt, fine and bright, tasted the rim of silence, and for the first time in the garden, something seemed to lean. Then the voice, soft as water and sharp as thorn, whispered, "Really? Really?" repeated the serpent, winding doubt round the trunk like a bracelet. "Really? He told you not to taste any fruit?" Eve smiled with a clarity that breaks malicious mirrors. "We may eat from all," she said, "except the one at the center. Not that one, because it is not yet for us. For the one at the center, not that one, because it is not yet for us." The serpent tilted its head. Its scales looked like moving letters. "So it is not no, but not yet. And if not yet, and if not yet, we're a lock to keep you from what you could become. The day you taste, your eyes will learn to name what they cannot name." Adam listened, with his arms at his sides, afraid any gesture would unsettle the weather. The wind friend of the afternoon passed near, brushed his temples, and left a thread of prudent music. It was a reminder, not a shout. Trust time. The fruit hung like a tamed little sun. It was not merely fair. It was full of tiny promises, as if shy constellations occurred inside it. Eve looked at it, and for the first time felt the garden looking back, awaiting her verdict. It was not ambition that tickled her chest. It was hunger for meaning. "And if the wind fears you groan," whispered the serpent, "and if the forbidden is not poison but path, and if the forbidden is not poison but path," the trunk vibrated like a plucked string. Adam stepped forward. In Eve's eyes, he sought the compass they shared. There was love in that gaze, and also a question: who are we if we do not choose? Eve held the fruit at the height of her heart. The pulse marked an ancient rhythm, that of every decision. The garden held its breath. Rivers hushed the glass. Cicadas stopped the tremolo. Even the horizon seemed to crease a little. The serpent waited without blinking, patient as a river stone. The wind came again, lighter, leaving memory of the promise like a golden thread across both shoulders. Eve closed her eyes. She imagined a world that would fit in her understanding, a world where mystery would climb down from its pedestal to sit at her table. She opened them. Light raced along the fruit's polished skin. Adam drew near, almost touching her hand. Between them there was a bridge of breathing. Then Eve tightened her fingers. They trod the earth outside the garden, and the world made a new sound. Not lament, but the creak of a door opening into a land without map. Behind them, the swirl of the flaming sword drew an arc of day they could not cross. Ahead, the horizon was a vast animal awaiting a name. Adam drove his heel into the dust. On his soul, he felt the rough language of the thorn. Eve rolled up the skins the wind had given them and looked at the land with a mix of respect and defiance. They learned quickly. Hands that had played with rivers of glass learned to split firewood. Wood taught fire, fire taught patience. With reeds and branches, they raised a humble roof. Adam struck rock against rock. Eve braided fibers like someone writing. Each gesture was prayer and promise. When the sun leaned, the shadow became a teacher. Here the day ends, but not the story. The first night fell with an ancient weight. The sky, free of the garden's dome, showed 1,000 lit eyes. So many gazes gave them vertigo. They embraced. There was no guilt between their arms. There was mourning and a warrior tenderness, the kind that decides to go on with skimmed knees. On the hill, a creature howled. The fire answered with a brave crackle over the coals. Eve whispered, "We are not alone. The voice that dressed us also walks outside." Adam, his brow blackened, nodded. "If this earth hurts, it sings as well. We will make it a friend by seed." And blow. And at dawns they searched a clearing. Eve lifted stones with fingers that still smelled of garden. Adam opened a clumsy furrow. They took a handful of grain, memory of fruit and hunger, and released it like a baptism. The earth swallowed and promised with a fertile silence. Sowing hurt their shoulders, yet the pain came with music. They named the place, and the name stuck like dew. Beginning from the thicket, the serpent watched. It did not hiss victory. It had learned too late the prophecy spoken. At the center, from the woman, would come a step that would crush its head. This time, the fear was hers. At midday, the wind visited their poor tent and bent the flame, as if to bless. It did not speak in phrases. It spoke with company. Eve placed a hand upon her belly, not because she knew dates, but because she knew destiny. From her life would come lives, and one of them would carry in his soul the strength to end the ancient quarrel. That night, under a sky that was already theirs, they sang. They had no fine words, so they sang with what they had: the clap of palms, the beat of chest, the throb of hope. The fire answered with sparks that looked like stars, learning to fall, and as the clumsy music blended with the insects' murmur, Adam and Eve understood. The garden had ended, but not the gardener. They walked. They left prints time could not erase. For every field they plowed, each child they raised, every tear they dried, with the back of the hand repeated the same promise: bless him. Will make its way through thistles, and when the wind crosses the wheat at the mild hour, even now it will sound like a voice that asks without accusing, "Where are you?" and answers with a smile, "Here on the way." Leaves trembled like apprentices of secrets. Adam and Eve pressed into the shade, believing the thicket could turn them wind. The voice, however, did not seek culprits. It sought children. "Where are you?" "The garden," pointed with its silence. Adam swallowed air with a taste of fresh clay. "I heard your voice in the garden and I was afraid," he said. "Because I am naked, so I hid. I hid." The wind did not become a storm. It became a question.
Who told you that you were naked?
"Did you eat from the tree I kept for another time?" Adam looked at his hands, still stained with fruit and seam. "I took what was not ours. I wanted to protect her and did not know how to protect us." The gaze turned to Eve, not like a knife, but like a lamp. "What have you done?" "Modest." A voice braided doubt for me, she answered. It was cold and bright. I wanted to understand everything before deserving it. Even the garden tightened like a string, and justice began to speak with the same serenity with which life had been pronounced to the serpent, who watched unmoving. It said, "Kai, you will crawl near the dust you so desire. Between you and the woman there will be an ancient war. From her seed will come one who will bruise your head, though you bite his heel." The prophecy hung, ringing like a bell that refuses to die away. Eve heard it, not as condemnation, but as a promise sown ahead. Then the voice turned to her. "Your bringing forth will have waves and depths. You will love and be wounded, desire and learn to choose amid pain, and still life will flow through you like a stubborn river. Afterward, Adam, the earth that was your bed will also be your workshop. Thorns will sprout beside the wheat, and you will earn bread by the sweat of your brow. Even so, work will keep its music when you remember for whom you do it. There was no shout. There was truth, and yet, inside the truth, an unexpected tenderness. The wind brought soft schemes, woven with the patience of dawn and clothed them with a new dignity, not to hide them, but to remind them that even outside the garden they would still be seen. In the east, the flame that kept the limit grew like an arch of sun. Rivers changed their song, preparing farewells. Adam and Eve intertwined fingers. There was no going back, but there was a way. The voice, which had always been home, indicated the exit with a gesture both firm and compassionate. One step from the gate. The garden drew one last deep step from the gate. The garden drew one last deep breath. A farewell remained, a final name to be spoken, and the first step upon earth that no longer sang by itself. Ugh. The sound was small, yet it parted history. A polished crack, like a seed waking. Eve raised the fruit to her lips, and the garden tilted a degree. It did not taste like prohibition. It tasted like a sweet lightning. It was a flavor with memory. On one shore, childhood. On the other, the adult question that never sleeps again. She swallowed. The sky did not fall. The angle of light changed. Adam received the fruit from her hands, not as plunder, but as pact, and bit at the touch of their tongues. Time, which until then had been one great present, learned how to count. First one heartbeat, then another, and already there was before and after. The serpent did not applaud. It only lowered one lid, satisfied it had strung the perfect bow. Then the first new words arrived: edge, distance. And it was beautiful, and it was rough. They looked at each other as one discovers oneself in a mirror. For the first time, they were naked. Yes, but nakedness ceased to be transparency and became exposure. Skin, which had been a dwelling of sun, now knew the blush, and where the wind had touched without asking, now it touched and it asked. The garden did not become enemy. It became aware. Grass was no longer only a bed. It had a blade that could cut. The river, once glass, now returned reflections, with questions set inside. Who told you you were less? Who told you you were more? Leaves seemed to offer themselves, clumsy, as apprentices. Adam and Eve made emergency garments, hurried craft, fig seams, an attempt to close with cloth what desire had opened. At each knot, a thought with no shelf, guilt, pride, curiosity, fear. Fear. Fear tasted metallic and cast a cool shadow. It was cold. I do not know what the friend will say when the mild hour comes. The mild hour, that daily visit that made the garden a home. For the first time, waiting for it hurt. Eve gripped Adam's hand. There were no reproaches, only the vertigo of having pushed a door with no hinges for return. The serpent slid into the brush, leaving in the air a tired irony. Answered questions. Bring greater questions. The sky dimmed a note, and the birds, weatherwise, changed their song, like musicians, tuning to another mode. From the east, the guarding flame paled for a moment, not from defeat, but from weight. And then, as every afternoon, it was heard. No thunder, no trumpet. Steps of someone who knows where each branch creaks, who does not tread, but strokes. The breeze carried a home-like voice, the one that had taught things to be. Where are you? I said, not to accuse, but to find. Their hearts banged against bark. They ran to the thicket and the garden, accomplice and witness opened its shadows.